Hi, I'm Mike Gilliam, and this is a slice of New York. The city we all love would not be what it is today without the contributions of a number of very strong, creative, and committed women. They are icons, feminists, and activists, women from all fields and walks of life, and all what they have given us. Grand Central Terminal would not be what it is today if not for the efforts of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. In 1971, she spearheaded the effort to restore Grand Central and save it from demolition or radical redevelopment, similar to what had already happened to Penn Station.
I think if we don't care about our past, we can't have very much hope for our future.
Now, approximately 750,000 people pass under its beautiful ceiling and through the station every day. Greenwich Village might look a lot different without the efforts of activist and urbanist Jane Jacobs. According to the Tiny Beans website, she wrote the book, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, and took on city planner Robert Moses and his urban renewal plans, keeping the flavor of the village alive and well. And what about the Brooklyn Bridge? When the chief engineer of the bridge, Washington Roebling, got sick, his wife, Emily Warren Roebling, took over the supervision of the project. He reportedly watched the progress from their home in Brooklyn Heights through a telescope. When it was finished, she was one of the first people to cross the bridge. She reportedly carried a rooster symbolizing victory. There's a plaque celebrating her. Shirley Chisholm was an icon in the world of politics. Born in Brooklyn, Shirley was the first African-American woman elected to Congress, while advocating for women's rights and racial justice. And she ran for president as a Democrat in 1972, the first black to run in either major political party.
I am not the candidate of Black America, although I am black and proud. I am not the candidate of the women's movement of this country, although I am a woman, and I'm equally proud of that.
Battling Bella Abzug was another huge political voice. A lawyer, politician, social activist, and leader of the women's movement, she joined Shirley Chisholm, Betty Friedan, and Gloria Steinem to found the National Women's Political Caucus. And you can't talk about the women's movement without giving Gloria Steinem her due. A leading voice in the movement for more than 50 years, she helped found New York Magazine and founded Ms. Magazine.
The women's movement, the civil rights movement, the gay and lesbian movement, all the great social justice movements have begun to remove labels from people and allow us to be the unique human beings we really are.
Long before them, Margaret Sanger founded the birth control movement. She was a nurse. In 1923 in Brownsville, Brooklyn, she opened the first birth control clinic. It was staffed by women doctors and social workers and eventually became Planned Parenthood. When it comes to the courts, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Sonia Sotomayor of the Bronx have risen to the highest court in the land. Sotomayor was a prosecutor on District Attorney Robert Morgenthau's staff before becoming a judge and a law professor, long before being tapped for the high court by President Barack Obama. Before the announcement, she says they told her she would be nominated and to pack her bags and come to Washington. She recounted the call from the president on C-SPAN.
And the president got on the phone and said to me, "Judge, I would like to announce you as my selection to be the next Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court." And I said to him, I caught my breath and started to cry and said, "Thank you, Mr. President." That was what the moment was like.
Justice Sotomayor played a key role in upholding the Affordable Care Act and same-sex marriage. Some of the women we included might not be household names because their accomplishments happened many years ago, but they still influence our everyday lives. There are other women who have played huge roles in making New York City special and championing the rights of New Yorkers and people around the country. Some of them are the subject of a new pop-up walking tour entitled Badass Women of New York. Joining us is the co-creator of She Shapes History New York City, the company that created the tour, Nikki Padilla Rivera. Welcome.
Thank you.
How did you come up with this?
This existed in Australia, and I was talking to the owner, and she was saying, you know, I'm thinking about bringing this to other cities. And I said, please let me do this in New York City. It would do so well in New York City.
How does it work?
It's a walking tour, which is kind of hard to describe for locals because no local would ever think to take a walking tour. But the idea is you're going through these streets that you know Times Square, you know Central Park, but we're talking about women that very likely you've never heard of before.
Who were some of these women that we're talking about?
We're talking about Mabel Pinghua Lee, who led 1,000 marchers up Fifth Avenue in a fight for women's right to vote when she herself could never vote because she was a Chinese American during the Chinese Exclusion Act. We're talking about Frances Perkins, who was the first female cabinet member in the entire United States. And it's thanks to her that we have, Social Security, the New Deal she worked on a lot, no more child labor, all these very day-to-day things that we have was really thanks to her work.
So how did Frances Perkins actually get involved in all this?
Frances Perkins was college educated, something not typical of the time, and she took an economics course in college, and she went and she toured different factories and for the first time saw with her own eyes women and children working in factories. So this was ingrained from her for very young that there was a problem with working conditions. Cut to, she is having tea with friends off Washington Square Park. She starts hearing all of these fire engines go by, and as nosy New Yorkers we do, she went outside to go and follow these fire engines. She follows them a few blocks away to find the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. Triangle Shirtwaist Factory was a factory that had caught in fire on the top 2 floors. The ladders of the fire engines could not reach it, and the doors were locked from the inside because they didn't want the workers to go and take unsolicited breaks. So the women were essentially trapped inside, and they were all women, young women and immigrants. So they had a choice to either burn alive or jump. And so Frances Perkins stood on the sidewalk with countless other New Yorkers that day and watched 146 women jump to their death. Ellen Stewart came, she wanted to be a fashion designer, but this is, a time when this is not happening for women, let alone a black woman in New York City. She was a porter at a department store, and she ended up being basically discovered with her fashions. She was an in-house designer, had her own line called Miss Ellen. And then in her second act of life, she wanted a passion project, and she opened up a basement theater because her brother couldn't get work as a black playwright. And that became La Mama, which is credited with being one of the most famous experiential theaters in the world. Another one that I really love is Barbara Giddings. She was working for gay rights decades before Stonewall, and it's really because of her work that they struck homosexuality off the list of mental diseases in the United States. This is slices of these women's life and what they have done, and it's almost this activism to hear their stories, to hear their names, because there's a reason their names aren't told. There's a reason we don't know about them. So the work that we're doing is creating a platform to tell their stories. And so it's almost this request of you to come on this tour to hear those stories, to learn those stories, and to pass them on.
And it starts at Grand Central?
It starts at Grand Central, and then we'll walk all the way up to Central Park, and it'll take about 2 hours.
That's a different way to present history, and I have to say, the name is pretty catchy. Okay, our thanks to Nikki of She Shapes History and the Badass Women's Tour. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk to 3 women comedians who have made their mark in the tough world of stand-up comedy. You would certainly call them badass comedians. In addition to the icons and activists who helped shape New York City, there are also entertainers. One area where women have excelled is in the world of stand-up comedy. It's an area where the cutting-edge badass vibe rules. Think the late Joan Rivers or Nikki Glaser. We have 3 such women here now. Marla Schultz is a headlining stand-up comedian, speaker, and actress. She credits saving lives one punchline at a time as her most important role, and recently appeared on Comics Unleashed with Byron Allen. Leighann Lord is an award-winning comedian and humor author who's performed in all 50 states, 20 countries, and Guam. She's appeared on HBO's Def Comedy All-Star Jam, Comedy Central, The View, and Showtime's Even More Funny Women of a Certain Age. And Carole Montgomery is the creator of the hot comedy show Funny Women of a Certain Age, to give older women a chance to be seen and heard, fighting ageism and sexism. Some of the comedians in her specials have included Fran Drescher, Lunell, and Carolyn Ray. Welcome to all of you.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's good to have you on here. Now, before we get into our conversation, we want to take a look at all of you performing. Here's a quick montage, and then we'll come back on the other side.
Oh,
okay?
Good. Sounds great.
Last year, I invited my therapist over for Thanksgiving dinner, so she could see what I'm working with. And she's in therapy now.
And he's 27, so he's a millennial. And like the people who have millennials, are they still living with you? Oh, they're the worst, man. They leave, they come back, they leave, they come back. I moved, he found me. You know what I mean?
Ladies, there's a big difference between East Coast women and West Coast women. I was out here, and this woman had a great jacket, and I said, oh my God, where did you get it? And she goes, a store. But if you ask an East Coast woman, where did you get that top? They're like, TJ Maxx, 40% off. I know they have more.
Funny, very funny. Okay, so Marla, stand-up comedy is not for the faint of heart, right?
No.
So how do you get started and how do you succeed?
Well, I got started because it was a way to break the ice and also connect to my crazy family. And I also took, like being bullied and making the bullies laugh. And I just, I don't know, there was just, laughter to me was love. And I started doing, taking classes, open mics, driving miles to do 5 minutes. And then, as you start, excelling, then you audition at clubs. And my first club was the Comic Strip, which is still my home club. And it took me 6 times to pass.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Leighann?
A very similar story. I do come from a funny family. My parents are hilarious on purpose. I too was bullied in school and wanted a distraction. I thought if I could make fun of myself and still get good grades, so that would please my parents and get me through the experience. But I also did theater in college. Baruch College had a small theater program.
Part of our family here.
I am very much part of the CUNY family. And I found that I loved being on stage, and I tried stand-up. I went on stage for 5 minutes, and I haven't looked back.
How about you, Carole? How did you?
I'm enjoying the conversation. Oh, me.
Well, join us.
Okay. How about me, about how I started?
Yeah.
Well, I was the bully. I just want you to know. So I didn't have
True story.
I didn't have to use humor for that. Actually,
So I should be very careful.
Yeah, you should be very careful. But mine is a little bit of a different story. My father was a New York City school teacher, and in his time off in the summer, he was a bartender up in the Catskill Mountains in the Borscht Belt.
Oh, wow.
So as a child, I would go sit with my dad while he was setting up the bar for the evening performances. So I got to watch Rodney Dangerfield, Toady Fields, Jackie Mason. They'd come in and they'd do their sound check, then they'd sit and have a drink with my father. So years later, I said to my father, it's your fault I became a comedian. So that's where I got it from. My father was also very funny, but I think I absorbed that as a little kid, that here were these people, they'd show up in their shorts, they were, it was the summer, and they'd be doing this and they'd be making jokes, and then later that evening, they'd be on stage in tuxedos and gowns, and I was like, that's a cool thing to do.
Wow. Did you all kind of start at a very early age? Did you know that this is something you wanted to do?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I started when I was 21. So, and it's all I've ever wanted to do. It really is. I mean, I've moved, I've worked behind the scenes, I've worked in front of the camera, I've done everything. But when you do stand up and it's good, like really good, like everything works. There's nothing better than it. There is nothing better like it.
Nothing like
But when you bomb, it's
Oh, there's
like
nothing like that either.
Yeah,
that is incredibly high and incredibly low, and what you hope for is this.
Yeah, but you know, bombing, I think at this point, because all of us are part of, you know, we've been around a long time, it's not the same thing as when you first start. When you first start, you're like, why am I even doing this? And then you go, I'll never do it again. Now when you bomb, it's like, all right, maybe I was off, maybe the audience was off. So you don't blame yourself, I think,
as much
as you did when you were a baby in comedy.
Someone once told
Speak for yourself.
Someone once told me that one of the cool things about stand-up is that you kind of get to edit. If you do bomb, you can fix it the next time.
Oh,
Where
absolutely.
with some other things like you can't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes you're fixing it as you're going along. You'll do something, or you'll come in with a plan of what you want to do, and the audience quickly lets you know whether you're following your plan or you have to adjust on the fly.
So what's it like when you spend time creating a joke, you've written a joke, you've worked on it, and you take it out there, and that particular joke bombs, falls flat?
That's hard because you can have a joke that joke can work the night before and destroy, and then you do the joke the next night and it gets nothing or crickets. I think it's energy, and it's you know, just the word choice, and also the tempo and the timing of the joke.
Oh yeah.
Well, you know, like I said, I'm the elder of the group, so
Thank goodness.
I've been doing stand-up for over 45 years.
Oh,
so
wow.
if I think a joke is funny, the chances are it's funny. So if it does not work, like when I work on new material, it's never that I have to hear the beats, because my delivery is very musical. So if I have to hear the beats and how it sounds in my head, whether or not the audience is laughing, because I still have to figure out how to make it work.
Almost everybody thinks they're funny.
Oh yeah, therein lies the problem.
So, right. So what would you tell those people who just see a stand-up person and say, oh, I could do that, no problem?
Try it.
Yeah, get up, go ahead.
Go to an open mic.
Yeah.
Try it.
Also, when you start off, so many people think that they're really funny, and then they're just vomiting, like, you know, the breaking up or whatever's going on in their life, and it's just not funny.
I have to add that the real difference is most people do indeed have a sense of humor, but it's different. It's one thing to be funny for your friends who have a shared knowledge of what you're talking about, and funny for strangers who have paid money and do not know you.
You have to be a professional.
Sure.
So it's much harder. Like, I can't tell you how many people started in stand-up when I started, and I would be surprised if there's 10 of us left, because people go...
There's a lot of drop-off.
Right, well, a lot of people will come up to you and go, it's hard. I'm like, yeah, no kidding.
You know what? Joy Behar gave me great advice, and she said it takes 10 years to become a really good comic, and it's like peeling away the layers of an onion.
Correct.
And Susie Essman even said comics should be in therapy while doing comedy, because it just gives you a whole different perspective, and it makes you a stronger comic.
So what goes into a successful act?
Jokes.
Actually, I say juggling.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, really, it's jokes. I teach stand-up, and both of you have taught. Yeah. The thing I always tell younger comics is, so much of it is confidence. So much of it, like when I first started out, I didn't consider myself a good writer, but I delivered that. You would have thought I was the greatest comedian in the world, because I came off like that, and then people would go, she didn't have any jokes. Do you know? So it's a lot. I think that it's mostly confidence and the jokes and the years.
Persona, too.
I think there are the two main ingredients for stand-up is the writing and the performance. And some people come to this and they're great performers, terrible writers.
Right.
Or vice versa. And your job in that 10 years is to, whatever you're weakest at, get that up, and then those two things rise. So you need that writing, in my opinion. You can pay for it as well, but you're not a good stand-up. You can be, let me rephrase it. You can be an excellent comedy writer. If you're not getting on stage doing jokes, you're not a stand-up. You're a comedy writer. You need two of those things, and then the consistency. How often are you getting out there? How often are you performing? How often are you tweaking stuff? When you say what goes into a good stand-up performance, 15 years.
So where can our audience find out where to see you guys in the coming months?
I think the best place for me is Instagram, so it's Marla Schultz Comedy.
Yeah.
For me, because no one can spell my name unless they put it on my birth certificate, I send people to my website, which is veryfunnylady.com. Has all my shows listed.
Okay.
And I don't do a lot of shows by myself anymore. I'm usually with these young ladies, so it's best to go to Funny Women of a Certain Age. If you Google it, it comes up, Instagram, website, all the tour dates.
Okay, great. Well, we want to thank all of our badass women for coming on here today and talking to us about comedy. Marla Schultz, Leighann Lord, and Carole Montgomery, thanks for coming on and putting a smile on our faces here. It's pretty funny stuff.
Thank you.
We're going to take another short break. When we come back, we'll talk to a powerhouse educator. I'm Mike Gilliam, and this is A Slice of New York. We're talking women's history and women who have made a difference in the city. One woman who is changing lives each and every day is the president of Medgar Evers College, Dr. Patricia Ramsey. Medgar Evers was recently named one of the top 100 colleges for women in the country. Dr. Ramsey is the first woman and scientist to serve as president of the college. Dr. Ramsey, we spoke to you shortly after you took over the school. Yeah. You've been there for a couple of years now. Talk to me about the environment that you're kind of fostering for women at Medgar Evers.
Well, I'm glad to have an opportunity, first of all, to chat with you again. But Medgar Evers College is embracing all students. And it just so happens that being a woman, it is a plus, if you will, as it relates to young women who are looking to go to college and looking at women leaders, because in me, they have that. And I didn't realize how important it was, actually, until I came to Medgar Evers and I heard so many women speaking about, we're so glad to see a woman in that seat.
And when we talk about women at the school, are there things within the curriculum that are drawing women to Medgar Evers?
Well, the curriculum is pretty much a liberal arts-based curriculum, but we do have one program that women tend to be drawn to more than others, and that is nursing, because most of the people in the nation, as you know, in nursing, most of them are female. But we have women that are going into non-traditional roles as well. I am a scientist, as you mentioned, and so people see, well, if she can do it, I can do it as well. And so we have a large number of students who are majoring in biology. As a matter of fact, it is our largest major at the college, which is a little bit unheard of for an institution such as ours that is a predominantly Black institution.
Let's talk a little bit about the women who would be coming to Medgar Evers. Of course, you have those who are just getting out of high school and beginning their college careers. Talk to me a little bit about what you're offering for them and how you recruit them to your school.
For students who are coming out of high school, we have to have a different approach than for students who are actually older students coming to the institution. And so we have developed a number of relationships with high schools, but also we have Medgar Evers College Preparatory High School, where those students are able to come to Medgar Evers College and they can get an associate's degree prior to graduation. And most of those students major in biology or one of the STEM disciplines. And so we are starting with them when they're in high school. And last year, during graduation, I had 71, I believe, students who were graduating with their associate's degree, and they had not finished high school yet.
Wow, that's great. Now, you touched on something. Not all students coming to college are coming from high school. There are many people who are going back to school. Others might be, moms, homemakers, that sort of thing, and decide to go back to school. Others are coming from other jobs. What about those people? How are you drawing them into Medgar Evers? And what's available for them?
Well, for the people who are working and coming back to school, there are some resources, especially if those people live in the city, because we do have some people who live outside of the city who come to Medgar Evers as well. But there's an opportunity for students to get assistance financially if they're coming back. But additionally, there are some programs in place where students can actually take all of their classes online. And that helps those people who are out there in the work world or who are raising families or whatever and can't be there on campus every day.
So there are opportunities then?
There are opportunities.
Okay. So what's your message to people who might be a little bit older, more mature, and are thinking about coming back to college?
Well, during the West Indian Day Parade weekend, I always have an opportunity to get on the stage and say, listen, if you want to go to college, it doesn't matter how old you are. We have funds that will enable you to go to college, and I always say for free, but really it is where their financial aid, where that leaves off, we are able to supply funds to assist them so that they will not leave college with debt. And so that's always very attractive to people who are older people wanting to go back to school. And I let them know that we have resources in place that will help them as it relates to their academic matriculation.
I have to circle back to this ranking that you guys received. Top 178, but not out of 100, out of 1272. That's phenomenal. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. We're excited about it. And when we learned of it, I looked to see what the actual details were. And I was really pleased to see how the women who actually were, I would say, polled, actually thought that Medgar Evers College was a very safe place. And I felt very good about that because we try very hard to make sure that the students feel comfortable, that they feel safe, and that they feel included and that they belong. So we're doing a lot of great things at Medgar Evers College. And women are, I would say, they're in much higher numbers, but we invite as many men as possible to come as well.
Mm-hmm. And another woman has recently recognized you as well, Governor Hochul, right?
Well, yes, we're very, very pleased. She actually indicated in the budget that there would be $1 million for Medgar Evers College to help provide access for students for Medgar Evers College.
Okay, that's going to have to be the last word. I want to thank Dr. Patricia Ramsey, the president of Medgar Evers College, for joining us and for her vision and the work that she's done at the school. And thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Gilliam. We'll see you next time on A Slice of New York.